Your team member leaves your office after their meeting and goes on with their day, lighter, relieved, unburdened. Meanwhile, you turn around and head straight into another meeting, another conversation. You open another frustrating email or get discouraging feedback, and some days it just feels like it never ends. If you're exhausted by all the conversations, all the tension, all that emotional weight of leadership, then friend, you are not alone, and this episode is for you. When I first got into leadership, I prided myself on having an open door policy. I wanted to be that kind of leader that people could just feel free to come to ask for help, where they would feel heard, where they would feel supported. But at the time, I worked at a nonprofit that served literally hundreds of families. And my door wasn't just open to my employees, I opened up that door to everyone. And let me tell you, that honeymoon phase wore off real quick. And it wasn't that those people didn't have real needs or that they didn't have meaningful things to say, but I was constantly pouring out. And I remember thinking, how do I lead with heart, like with the values that I really care about in leadership without burning out? How do I keep having all of these conversations that are supposed to help everyone else when I need some help? And let me tell you, it adds up. You know this. So, we used to live in Northern Virginia, just off of I 95. And if you know anything about that highway, you know that there is one thing that it's famous for: traffic. It didn't matter if it was rush hour, if it was Sunday afternoon, if it was a random Thursday morning at 10:45 in the morning, there was always congestion. And because of that, there was always construction. They were building new lanes. And then because of that, there were detours. There were projects they were trying to fix, trying to expand the lanes or whatever. But here's the thing: the construction never actually helped the traffic. The more it tried to fix, the more backed up things got. And that's what leadership can feel like. You fix one problem and another one pops right up. You smooth out this conflict and then a new tension shows up right over there. So just when you think we're good, the next thing breaks. And that's what leads to burnout. And when I say burnout, I don't just mean tired. I mean that kind of fatigue where you're not sure anything you're doing is working, where you start to feel a disconnection from your people and where cynicism creeps in. And honestly, I can usually tell when a leader is burnt out because they're not angry. They're skeptical. When I offer new ideas, they struggle to have an open mind because they've stopped hoping that things will change. Burnout makes us cynical. And it's not because those leaders are bad leaders, it's because they're tired and they're tired of being disappointed. So today, I want to help you find your way back. I want to give you a mindset shift and some practical tools that you can use when you're feeling that kind of conversation fatigue. Because leadership is hard, but it doesn't have to leave you empty. It doesn't have to leave you with nothing left to bring home to the people you love the most at the end of the day. So take a deep breath. Let's set down the weight of cynicism and let's get into it. I'm going to give you 4 steps to get out of conversation fatigue and burnout. Okay, number 1, the first one is don't have an open door policy. I know that probably isn't what you expected to hear from me, but I have learned over time and the hard way that you cannot be all things to all people at all times. And that does not make you a bad leader. And burnout trickles down from the top. And if you're feeling this way and allowing your calendar to be ruled by the immediate needs of your people, then that is what they will think you expect of them. And even if you say the opposite, even if you're telling your people to make boundaries or take breaks or whatever, if they aren't, they will feel a pressure to match your pace and your habits. So don't have an open door policy. Instead, have an open office hours policy. Decide the times each week that you're going to be free for conversations, like Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 3 or whatever works for you. And these times are outside of your regularly scheduled one-on-ones or your staff meetings. So this is for those moments where someone drops you a Slack or a text or just drops in and needs to discuss something. And here's what you're going to do when that happens. If it's through Slack or text or email, you are not going to answer right away. I know. It's so hard. You're not going to do it. You're going to set a timer on your phone for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour. Will you do it? An hour? Because here's the deal. People reach out in moments like that when emotions are high. So everything is high stakes to that person in that moment. So they consciously or subconsciously believe that because it's high stakes for them, it has to be high stakes for you. And unless there is an absolute emergency, giving them a minute to lower the stakes, lower the emotions, and not be conditioned to know that you're going to respond right away is really good for them. And it's really good for you. So you set a timer, then your timer goes off, and you respond and you say, hey, thanks for reaching out. Go ahead and pick a time for my Calendly when we can meet and discuss this. So if you don't know what Calendly is or you don't use it, you got to do it. You got to sign up for it today. It's an online scheduler. So you can put in those open hours, and it's kind of like a sign up genius thing. People can click on the link and book a call or a meeting, and then that time slot is gone. And you can use it for free. So I'm going to drop the link into the show notes, and you got to get Calendly. It's made my life easier. It's made so many leaders' lives easier. But you direct them to schedule a call with you during that time. If they walk in and say, hey, can I talk to you about something? I know that in that moment when it's a person, it feels a little harder because you're right there. So what I would do is screen the issue by saying, hey, yeah, I have 3 to 5 minutes. Can I help you in that time? Or do you just want to schedule a time with me during my office hours? And then you hold them to that 3 to 5 minutes and cut it off. Or you email them your Calendly link right then and say, great, looking forward to that chat. So are you available to them? Yes, but not to all people at all times for all things. You are available to them on your terms. It is an open office hour policy. And I know you might be thinking, Kara, this is going to be really harsh and sudden and weird for my people. Yeah, it might be. So in your next staff meeting, you need to make it clear, hey, friends, I'm shifting to open office hours so I can make sure I give you all the time you need for anything that you need to talk to me about outside of our normally scheduled meetings. So here are the dates, here are the times, here's the link to schedule a time. And it's fine to encourage them to let you know when they need to chat. But they need to know that when they come to you and say, hey, I need to talk, that you're going to direct them to book a call or book a meeting. Ooh, but here's something good. Then you encourage them to do the same thing with the people they oversee or the clients they work with or whoever is pressing them for their time. Because just as burnout trickles down, health trickles down. So don't have an open door policy. A little caveat here, a little note. Obviously, you want people stopping in to say hi. You want to spend time outside of your office with people, chatting casually, sending Slack messages casually. This isn't a closed door policy to casual connection or casual conversations, but to any conversation that needs your attention for more than 5 minutes. Does that make sense? I think you understand that, but I'm just putting it out there just in case. Okay, number 2. Stay focused on what is in your control. One of the reasons we are so frustrated and fatigued by conversations is because people often bring us stuff that is outside of our control or really outside of their control. And then they expect us to do something about it. So a common example of this is when someone comes complaining about another coworker. Well, that other coworker isn't in the room. You can't do anything about that person. I say to my clients, I can't coach a ghost. You got to be in the flesh, in the room, for us to help or challenge or address that person. Another common example is when they want something you just can't give them or answers that you just don't have yet. And all of these conversations would be easy if people left happy and content every time. But that's not reality. And it gets really old as the person having to be that person. So to keep the conversations that are neatly placed in your office hours in check and from going rogue, you have to focus on what you can control and what the person you're talking to can control. You can still hear them out, but you have to bring it back. And you can say, hey, thank you so much for sharing that. I want to make sure we walk away from this today with something that is helpful to you. So what is something in our control that we can specifically work through? Or maybe you can just call it out and say, hey, I want to help you, but what you have shared is just out of our control. Can you help me think through what is within our control? And then we can collaborate and problem solve together. If you don't manage the conversation in this way, you will seriously just spiral. Everyone will walk away confused without a clear action plan, and it will only perpetuate your exhaustion. So stay focused on what is in your or their control. Okay, number three. This one is similar to number two, close cousin, if you will. Stay on task and cut the excess. What do I mean? There are people who love to talk. You know who they are. The ones who start a conversation with you and you know it's gonna be a while. And no amount of body cues or verbal cues or interjections can keep them from a marathon soliloquy. So, my husband and I had a neighbor once who loved to catch us as we were coming in from work on the way home. It's as if she was watching and waiting for us to get home to just come out and start a conversation. And I mean, we loved her, but she was skilled at this. I mean, I think I'm a good communicator, but it was nearly impossible to cut her off. So we had a little deal that if it was over 10 minutes and one of us was stuck, the other person would text and say that they needed help with something. And I mean, it was mostly true, but it had to be a text because if the other person came out, they were stuck too, sucked right in. Here's the point. We had a plan. We knew if we were going to keep to our priorities for the night after a long day apart, we need to have a plan that involved giving neighbor lady a minute, caring for her personally, making a connection, but then moving on. So this takes discernment on your part. Most often when people share all the details, it's because they don't yet know how to verbalize the core issue, or they don't know how to verbalize exactly what they need. They share all the symptoms of the issue to build their case, to help you see where they're coming from, when really all those symptoms are all just part of the core issue. And if you can get to that issue, then all of the symptoms go away. So if the examples of the problem or just the conversation starts to feel like it's taking way too long or it's going way too deep, too many details, you need to cut it off. You could say something like, "Hey, thanks for sharing all that, but I'm really curious. In your perfect scenario, how would things look different for you?" And bingo, that is the question that leads to the core issue. If you were to ask them, "What's the core issue here?" they wouldn't know. They probably still wouldn't know what to say. So ask, "In your perfect scenario, how would things look different for you?" So here's an example. I'm going to do a little role play here with myself. So your employee Jordan says, "So I've been feeling kind of frustrated lately. Like last week I emailed Taylor 3 times about the supply order, and then I finally went into her office. She said she never saw the emails, and I know she got it. And I feel like that's just an excuse." And that reminded me of the time last month when we ran out of black folders and I asked her to let me know in advance, but she didn't. And then I had to go out during lunch, and at that point you smile, you gently interrupt and you say, "Hey, Jordan, thank you for sharing all that. I can tell this is weighing on you. So let me ask you something real quick. In your perfect scenario, how would this situation look different for you?" And Jordan says, "Honestly, I just want to know that if I send something, people see it and respond. Like that I'm not chasing things down that should just be simple." And then you say, "Oh, okay, that's super helpful." So the real issue is the communication loop and the expectations with the team. That gives me a clearer picture of how we can address it. So let's dig into that together. Do you see how that worked? So now you're on task. You understand the core issue and you don't need 10 other examples. You can collaborate, come up with a plan. So stay on task and cut the excess. And number four, the last practical piece of advice I have for you here is to give yourself 10 minutes between each meeting in those office hours and acknowledge what was hard for you in the conversation you just had. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm not a journal person. I don't do it. I never have. I don't get it. I mean, I get why people like to do it. It just doesn't work for me. It's hard. So I am someone who needs to verbally process. My poor husband, I'm sure sometimes would love if I had a journal, but I verbally process. So that might be like a voice memo or something like that. But you need to find a way to acknowledge and write down what was specifically hard or exhausting or frustrating or whatever emotion you're feeling. So let's say you have a meeting and your employee is complaining about things he doesn't like, things that you're doing, things that's happening in the company, and you do your best to have a thoughtful conversation. But when he leaves, you feel drained, you feel discouraged. But why? That's the key. You have to name what is draining you, what is discouraging you, because if you don't, it will feel in your mind way bigger than what it is. It will feel like everything is discouraging and draining. If this was me in this situation, I might write down, "I feel misunderstood and disrespected. He doesn't try to see the other side of this. I don't know what to say to him anymore." Right? That might be the 3 things that are frustrating me, discouraging me, exhausting me. Those are a few things I might write down. And here's the thing. Now I know how I feel personally about the situation, about him. And these things that I wrote down are within my control. So when my house is a disaster, which it tends to be, hello, 3 kids under 10, a golden retriever, and 2 not type A parents, I can tend to get super overwhelmed. Like I can shut down. But if I can name it, laundry, dishes, I know where to put my focus. I get that done. I take it one step at a time, and I see it just for what it is, not for how it feels. And friend, here's where having a coach is huge. When you have someone you can go to who is not involved in your company, who doesn't know your people, and help you focus on what you can control, it changes everything. Because yeah, you can write it down, and you should, but then what? Sometimes it's hard to know what to do with that. So I encourage you wholeheartedly to find a coach to work with. There are so many good leadership coaches out there, but friend, I would love to help you. Even if there's just one thing you're going through that you could use some help thinking through or some advice on where to go next, just go ahead to heycaralist.com/free call. I would love to jump on a call with you and have that talk. But again, me, someone else, everyone needs a coach. I have one. Well, I actually have 2 right now, but at least have one. Okay, so to sum all this up, those 4 steps to escaping conversation burnout are 1, don't have an open door policy, but an open office hour policy. 2, stay focused on what is in your control. 3, stay on task and cut the excess. And 4, name or acknowledge what was hard for you in the conversation. So I want to challenge you before we end today with a little bit of a mindset shift. If you can build some of these boundaries and habits into your conversations at work, then I hope you can start to see these moments not as an interruption to your work, but as the most important work itself. Being a leader means first and foremost, serving and caring for the people within your sphere of influence. And yeah, you got work to do. I get it. Everyone has work to do. But most often, these conversations are some of the most important work you can do. It's the reason you are in the spot you are in. So yeah, are they hard? Absolutely. Annoying? You bet. But this is the real work, friend. So create your boundaries and then commit to thinking about these ongoing conversations as your opportunity to actually lead. This is when the leadership happens, not alone in your office, marking off your checklist. And I also want to say that burnout doesn't just go away. It doesn't go away with a vacation. It doesn't go away with less conversations or easier people. If you care enough to pull yourself out of it, then you need to take the steps, the ones I listed here, to navigate it and get through it because it doesn't just go away on its own or in different circumstances. And again, please invest in a coach. It will be easily the best decision you make for your leadership and for your people. And if you're listening to this, I want to encourage you to jump on my Better Conversations newsletter. I send a short and practical leadership communication tip every single week. They are my best tips, and I only send these tips out to the leaders in my circle. So jump in the circle with us, friend. Go to heycaralist.com/newsletter and get on it soon so you can get my next email coming out on Thursday. Okay, friend, I hope this was helpful. I remember what it feels like to be so completely fried, and I don't want that for you. So put this into action. Let me know how it goes. You know I love hearing from you. And until next week, know that I'm cheering you on, and I look forward to our next chat. Talk to you then.